friends to this NPTEL online certification course of environmental soil chemistry, and today we are going to start our module 8 or week 8 lectures, and in this week we will be talking about different soil pollutants and how they impact soil physical, chemical and biological properties. So, these are the concepts which we are going to cover, that what are the soil pollutants, and then we will be talking about nitrates, phosphates and different salts, and also we will be talking about in details about the different inorganic toxic pollutants as well as organic toxic pollutants for the soil. So, these concepts we are going to cover in this week. So, if we start with the definition of soil pollutants, what is soil pollutant? What are the soil pollutants? Now, soil pollutants are considered as any chemical, natural or anthropogenic origin which accumulates in the soil medium and changes the natural soil equilibrium as a result of human activity. Now, this is very important. Most of the cases these are due to the anthropogenic activities, and when they accumulate into the soil, they produce disruption of the natural soil equilibria which are present in the natural soil condition. So, this is basically the definition of the soil pollutants. Now, soil pollutants can be divided into several groups, mainly three. First of all, inorganic soil pollutants, then inorganic organically bound compounds, and third organic toxic compounds. So, we are going to discuss all of them in details in this week or in this module. So, let us talk about the inorganic or inorganic organically combined pollutants. So, this group basically these two group basically includes nitrates, phosphates, salts and trace elements. And the characteristics of these compounds are that they can be found in soil either inorganic or in organic form, and their behavior could be changed according to the speciative status. So, depending on their species, their behavior will change drastically. We will see that in details. Now, let us start with the most important one, that is nitrogen. What are the nitrogen? We will going to discuss what are the important nitrogen forms which are environmental pollutant, and how the nitrogen can cause environmental pollution with other nutrients or other elements present in the soil. Now, remember in soil the nitrogen mainly in soil the main nitrogen compounds are nitrate and nitrite, exchangeable ammonium, mineral fixed ammonium, dinitrogen nitrogen gas and nitrous oxides. It is basically N2O, it is not it is should be read as N2O. Okay. Now, the nitrogen concentration at the upper layer of the soil fluctuates due to climatic changes and varies from 10 ppm during the winter to 50 ppm during the spring in temperate climate. Again, the nitrogen concentration at the upper layer of the soil fluctuates, and the climatic condition depending on the climatic changes, it varies from 10 ppm in the winter to 50 ppm during the spring in temperate climate. Part of it is due to the activity of different microorganisms which take part in nitrogen conversion. Now, also ammonium is comparatively less mobile than that of nitrate. Nitrate is highly mobile. It is very most of the nitrate which we apply to the soil get leached down because they are highly mobile into the soil. Now, this ammonium is comparatively less mobile than nitrate, as it can be easily fixed by the negatively charged clay particles. Clay particles are negative, so they can easily fix the ammonium ion which are positively charged, and its depth wise distribution in this soil also depends upon the clay content. So, when there is a more clay, obviously there will be more fixation of ammonium. So, depending on the distribution of the clay, their the concentration of ammonium changes with the depth, and also nitrate can easily move to the deeper layer with water, but if soil contains iron oxides or hydroxides, the mobility of nitrate is less appreciable. So, basically this nitrate can move to the deeper layer, as I have already told you, it is very easy to get leached down. I mean, the nitrate is highly susceptible to get leached from the soil, and if the soil contains iron oxides and hydroxides, the mobility of nitrate is less appreciable, because they get they get basically attached to the iron oxides and hydroxides because of anion exchange reaction, you know that. So, 90% of the nitrogen at the upper portion of the soil is organic in nature. Now, Stevenson in 1982 divided the organic nitrogen in terms of acid hydrolysis fractions. What are those fractions? First of all, acid insoluble nitrogen, then amino acid nitrogen, amino sugar nitrogen, and hydrolyzable unknown nitrogen. Some fraction we know that we basically denote that by HUN, hydrolyzable unknown nitrogen. Now, climates, how that climates impact the nitrogen formation. The warmer climate helps to build up the higher nitrogen concentration as amino acid nitrogen or amino sugar nitrogen, and lower concentration are observed in cooler region and Arctic region. So, lower concentration of nitrogen you can see in cooler region and Arctic region. However, in warmer climate it helps to build up higher nitrogen concentration as amino acids and amino sugar, perhaps due to the activity of different microorganisms. So, these are different nitrogen forms. Now, organic nitrogen shows a high resistance to microbial attack, and it can be explained by the nature of organic nitrogen complexes like ammonia or nitrate, basically lignin or humic substance complexes, and then adsorption of the clay mineral complexes. Okay. So, let us talk about the nitrogen cycle. This nitrogen cycle shows different processes which are which basically occur in the soil from the point of view of nitrogen conversion. So, let us start with the plant. Okay. So, this is the plant. Now, when the plant dies, the plant and other residues come into the soil, and these basically plant residues converts to the soil organic matter. Okay. Now, this soil organic matter, from the soil organic matter, the organic form of nitrogen get converted due to the process of ammonification to ammonium ion, and these ammonium get through the process of nitrification first convert to the nitrite and then to nitrate, and these nitrate also will uptake by different they can convert into the soil organic matter through the process of immobilization, or these nitrates get uptaken by the plant. Okay. Now, these nitrate can also go to the atmosphere as nitrous oxide gas or dinitrogen gas through the process of denitrification, all right, and also this nitrate lost from the soil through the process of leaching. So, these nitrate either get lost by denitrification process or leaching or by plant uptake. Okay. So, we can see this is the major process. Apart from that also, these ammonium produce volatilization loss and produce the ammonia which releases into the atmosphere. This also when we apply different sewage effluent nitrogen, that can be converted into the ammonia, and also they can convert it to the soil organic matter, and also when we apply fertilizer nitrogen, that also go to the either ammonium pool or in the nitrate pool. Similarly, when the acid rain happens, this acid rain also can go to the ammonium pool or sometimes it go to the nitrate pool. So, you can see also the atmospheric nitrogen get fixed into the soil organic matter through symbiotic and non-symbiotic nitrogen fixation. So, this is basically the different dynamics of nitrogen which are occurring into the soil. So, the soil gains nitrogen by acid rains, nitrogen fertilizers, sewage effluent nitrogen and residues of previous crop into the field. Now, nitrogen fixes in the soil by symbiotic as well as non-symbiotic fixation and by ammonification and nitrification. What are the losses of nitrogen? The losses of nitrogen can be explained in terms of volatilization, leaching, denitrification and plant uptake. We have seen all this. Now, denitrification is carried out by facultative anaerobes which also require poor drainage, a temperature range of 5 to 25 degree centigrade, pH 7.5 and supply of decomposable organic matter. Now, in the presence of decomposable organic matter, this decomposing of the organic matter used up all the oxygen. So, these anaerobic microorganisms facultative anaerobes can, they are basically anaerobes can also they are basically aerobes, but they can survive in the anaerobic condition also. So, these facultative anaerobes basically uses this nitrate in the as the electron acceptor in the anaerobic condition, ultimately converting this nitrate to the atmospheric nitrogen which releases into the atmosphere through the process of denitrification. So, we have covered the nitrogen in brief. Now, let us talk about the phosphorus. Now, soil phosphorus basically includes both organic and inorganic forms, but only labile or available phosphorus participates actively in the soil reactions. So, labile means which are movable or which are basically available. So, percentage of each phosphorus fraction varies greatly from 5 to 90% and higher concentration can be found only in organic soil, because organic matter has such functional groups which can mobilize the fixed phosphorus. So, this is how in the organic soil the percentage of phosphorus fraction is generally very high. Now, the principal inorganic phosphorus forms are calcium orthophosphate, which are found in alkali soils in high concentration of calcium. These are basically calcium orthophosphate, and also you can see adsorbed orthophosphate as well as occluded phosphate. Now, the order of the solubility of the phosphate generally can follow primary orthophosphate ion, which is highest soluble, followed by secondary orthophosphate ion and then followed by PO4 3 minus. Now, the formation of stable phosphate compound like tricalcium phosphate and apatite require high pH, and so this in case of high pH condition, that means when there is a high calcium concentration, the formation of this tricalcium phosphate or apatite is there, and in case of low pH condition where you can see the more concentration of iron and aluminum, you will see the iron phosphate as well as aluminum phosphate present in the soil. So, in case of alkaline soil, again the predominance of you will see the dominance of calcium phosphate or apatite. In case of acidic soil, you will see the dominance of different aluminum phosphate as well as iron phosphate. So, the level of water soluble phosphorus is very low in dry soil, which is 0.03 to 3 mg per kg or ppm. So, that is why when you apply the fertilizer, the phosphorus level rise immediately. However, most of them are getting fixed because they are not soluble in the water. Now, since phosphorus is immobile in soil because they are not soluble in water, and plants also uptake phosphorus very slowly, after phosphorus application it quickly becomes integral part of the soil. So, in other words, it get fixed into the soil. In the acidic condition, it get fixed by either iron phosphate, aluminum phosphate, or in the alkaline condition, it get fixed by tricalcium phosphate or apatite. Now, soluble portions of phosphorus are taken up by the plants phosphorus in grains are removed and rest portion of the plant became sources of organic phosphorus to the soil. So, when you apply this plant residue into the further soil during the further cultivation, that becomes the source of organic phosphorus. Now, the peak concentration of labile P declined after few hours or a few days or 2 days of application of fertilizer just for the due to the phosphorus fixation process. Now, sorption, so that is why we already in case of fertilizer phosphorus application, it is always recommended to apply phosphorus in split doses, not in one in one go, because if you apply all the phosphorus in one go, maximum of that fertilizer will get will get fixed, and as a result the plant cannot get that phosphorus. So, you will see that sorption process is mainly responsible for the removal of phosphorus in acid soils on aluminum iron oxides and sorption of precipitation in calcareous soil. So, if you see the phosphorus amount of phosphorus fixation in the soil at different pH level, this graph gives us a very good illustration, shows a very good illustration. So, obviously, there are clearly there is a line. So, obviously, in case of alkaline condition, when the pH is greater than 7 or 8 or 9, you will see there is a medium fixation level, and this will be phosphorus will be fixed by calcium. However, when the pH is in the acidic range, you will see two fixation hills. So, first of all, it is showing the high fixation, and this is basically showing phosphorus fixation by aluminum. You remember that we have talked that in the acidic soil there is a high concentration of aluminum, and that is why aluminum is considered as an acidic cation, and as a result of this acidic cation presence, there is a high fixation. And in case of lower pH like pH 1 to around pH 4 to 4.5, you will see the greatest fixation is by iron. So, you can see this graph basically gives us the evidence that in the acidic condition, the phosphorus will be present as iron phosphate or aluminum phosphate, and in the alkaline condition, it will be present as calcium phosphate. Now, let us talk about the phosphorus cycle. Now, in the soil, the phosphorus cycle starts with the crop. So, when the crop get decomposed after its death, so it basically improves the soil organic phosphorus and microbial phosphorus, and these soil organic pool get decomposed to produce the soluble phosphorus, soluble phosphate, which further plant can take. And from this soluble phosphorus pool, microbial uptake can occur to convert them into the soil organic or microbial pool also. And from this soil organic and microbial pool, there can be soil erosion losses, which can further goes to the surface water and coastal areas, creating eutrophication. What is eutrophication? We will see. And this phosphorus in the solution get retained as soil phosphorus or get fixed. Now, when we apply phosphorus first fertilizer, this fertilizer increase the soluble phosphorus concentration in the solution, soil solution. From there is some retention also or fixation of phosphorus, and rock phosphate or phosphate rock deposit can be converted to phosphorus fertilizer. Okay. So, further the phosphorus in crop harvest, phosphorus in livestock can ultimately go to in the form of crop residues and manure can go to soil organic and microbial P. So, this is the total phosphorus cycle. You can see runoff from agricultural fields is the major cause for transportation of phosphorus in the soil. As I have told you, the phosphorus get fixed into the soil, and as a result of the runoff of the soil particle, phosphorus also move away with the soil particle getting fixed in the fixed form, and then they reach from one area to another area. Now, anthropogenic activity affects the global phosphorus cycle, and phosphorus from farm and sewer discharge is already affecting the freshwater and marine ecology in many areas. We will see that in details. Now, this is a very important term, eutrophication. So, we have discussed about the nitrogen and phosphorus. Let us see how these two nutrients get disturbs the equilibrium, natural equilibrium or ecological balance, and then create the problem of eutrophication. So, eutrophication is derived from the Greek word called eutrophos, that means well nourished or enriched. So, eutrophication is basically the excessive presence of nutrients like nitrate and phosphate in a lake or other water bodies, which causes the dense growth of plant life. So, generally you can see this type of eutrophication in springs, streams, lakes are and they are in these spring, streams and lakes, they are categorized as oligotrophic or poor nutrient content, or mesotrophic, that is moderate nutrient content, and eutrophic, that is high nutrient content, on the basis of various contents like phosphorus, nitrogen and calcium. So, when the high concentration of phosphorus, nitrogen and calcium are there, we will call it eutrophic. When it is medium, then it is called the mesotrophic. When it is low, that is called the oligotrophic environment. So, here you can see one thing, that when the nitrogen and phosphorus, due to nitrogen is highly mobile, you have already know that, and this phosphorus can move away through surface runoff, through soil particles in the fixed form. When they reach the water body, they basically, these nutrients are basically used by phytoplankton, okay, and these phytoplankton show a boom in their population. Okay. We call it algal bloom. Okay. And as a result of this algal bloom, whatever dissolved oxygen which is present in the water getting depleted, ultimately killing the aquatic organisms. So, basically due to the presence of nitrogen and phosphorus, and they basically cause an increase in the phytoplankton because they utilize these nutrients, and as a result there is a algal bloom, and when these algae basically die, they decay, removing all the oxygen, dissolved oxygen which are present in the water, and ultimately depleting the dissolved water and creating the and basically ultimately leading towards the death of the other aquatic organisms. So, what are the causes and types of eutrophication? There are two types of causes for eutrophication. One is called the natural cause. So, let us first discuss this first. So, natural cause of eutrophication. Natural cause of eutrophication, this occurs because of the natural process of aging of lakes, during which the nutrition status of the water system gradually increases and oligotrophic lake is converted to eutrophic lake. So, basically due to the aging process of the lake, the nutrition status of the lake increases. So, converting it from the poor oligotrophic to highly nutrient content, that is eutrophic lake. Similarly, death of aquatic plants and elements also increases the nitrate and phosphate content of the water, and it permits the production of phytoplankton, algal bloom, and basically aquatic, it permits the production of phytoplankton, algal bloom and aquatic vegetation like water hyacinth, aquatic weeds, water fern and water lettuce, that provide the ample food for herbivores, zooplankton and fish. So, basically these these phytoplankton, algal blooms, water fern and all these things provide ample food for herbivorous zooplankton and fish. So, their production is increased. Now, the second cause for eutrophication is man-made causes. So, man-made causes, also known as the cultural eutrophication, and this process is generally speed up by anthropogenic activities, and they are basically responsible for the addition of 80% nitrogen and 75 phosphorus to lakes and streams, and use of also NPK fertilizers, discharge of domestic and industrial wastes, and also detergents, urban drainage, animal waste and sediments, all these are responsible because they, when they enter into the water body, they ultimately leads to the cultural eutrophication. Now, what are the effects of eutrophication? Well, eutrophication leads to various physical, chemical and biological changes of water, deteriorating its quality. We have already talked about there is the enriched nitrogen, phosphorus content in the water bodies facilitates the heavy growth of aquatic plants like algae, causing this algal bloom as you can see in this picture, okay, which prevents penetration of light into the deeper layers. So, when there is an algal bloom, the sunlight cannot penetrate deeper into the water layer, and decomposition of algal bloom depletes the oxygen level and increase the carbon monoxide level in water. Because decomposition of algal bloom, because when these algae die, the decomposition of those dead bodies of algae basically will require consumption of oxygen, and this oxygen is basically present in the dissolved form in the water. So, reduction of organic level, reduction of dissolved oxygen happens when there is a decomposition of algal bloom, and creating the poor oxygen supply of aquatic organisms, and aquatic organisms begin to die, which turns the clean water into the stinking drain. And also loss of dissolved oxygen results in anaerobic decomposition of organic matter that produces hydrogen sulfide, then methane, ammonium, causing foul smell and putrefied taste of water. So, these are the effects of eutrophication. And also algae, diatoms and rooted weeds show dominance by interfering hydroelectric power, clogging of the water filter during the treatment process, also retarding the water flow and affecting the quality of water and waterworks. And also it can produce fatal waterborne diseases such as polio, dysentery, diarrhea, typhoid and virus hepatitis, spread as many pathogenic microorganisms, viruses, protozoa and bacteria can grow in the sewage products under anaerobic condition. So, this is basically eutrophication and its ill effects. Now, let us talk about the salts. In chemistry, salt is produced by reaction of an acid and a base, you know that. At the source of the cation is base and the anion is basically acid. So, the soil water is a solution which consists different types of salts like either sodium salt, calcium salt or other or salts of other cations, from magnesium salts are also present. So, the ion exchange capacity of the solid phase controls the distribution of the ions between the solid and liquid phase in the soil. What are the important cations and anions in the salts? Sodium, calcium, magnesium, potassium, these are the important cations, and also chloride, sulphate, carbonate, bicarbonate, these are the important anions, and they can be found in semi-arid to arid areas. Why in semi-arid to arid areas? Because in the semi-arid to arid areas there is high evaporative demand, and as a result of high evaporative demand, the water get easily moved to the surface of the soil, and ultimately then get the water get evaporated, leaving the salt crust over the soil. As you can see here, this is an example of the saline soil, and this creates the pollution. Now, as a result of human activity, salt accumulation is also increased. In special cases, salts is reflected by the quantity of its iron ratios may become harmful for the environment. Salts also create several toxicity, and also when the salt is present in the soil solution, plant cannot absorb or plant cannot extract the water through its roots. So, among the cations, sodium and magnesium, and among the anions, sulphate and chlorides are considered as the potential pollutants as far as the salts are concerned. Now, if you see the classification of the salts, salts basically consist of anions and cations, and what are the major anions? sulphate, chloride, in case of cations as sodium and magnesium. So, these are major pollutants which are arising from different salts in the soil. So, let us talk about another important element, that is called sulphur. So, sources of sulphur are two types, one is earth, another is atmospheric sources. Now, the earth sources of sulphur are sulphate minerals, sulphate bearing minerals adsorbed on mineral surface and then absorbed by organic matter and sulphides in soil liquid. However, in case of atmospheric sources, the major source is sulphur dioxide. So, how you can see sulphur in soils? Now, inorganic sulphur is found in soil as mineral sulphur adsorbed as sulphates or as solutes. Now, sulphur occurs as precipitating calcium or magnesium sulphates. Metal sulphides such as iron sulphide, zinc sulphide are also found in mostly anaerobic condition in case of submerged soils. Sulphides are oxidized to sulphuric acid when exposed to air. We have seen this thing in the in some soils of Kerala of India, and inorganic sulphur represents the 5 to 10% of the total sulphur in soils. Now, sulphur containing compounds in soil organic matter are several types, majorly 6 types. One is amino acid cysteine, as you can see the structure of the cysteine here, then methionine, then reducible sulphur, ester sulphate, then carbon bonded sulphur, and then their related compounds of the carbon bonded sulphur. So, the release of sulphur depends upon the rate of decomposition of organic matter in soils, and after the release sulphur is oxidized to sulphate by sulphur oxidizing microorganisms. So, guys, we have talked about some of the important elements and how they can influence the soil pollution. We have talked about some important inorganic elements, and let us wrap up our lecture here. In the next lecture, we will see some other important inorganic and organic pollutants of soil. Thank you very much.